Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I'm Chris Clements.
And this is one of those weeks when you know, sometimes we come in and we're like, what should we talk about?
Well,
and then there's other weeks where it's like, there's so much to talk about.
What can't we talk about?
I mean,
today?
there's so much to talk about.
Yeah. Nothing is happening in the world.
I'm jacked up a little bit. Got a good workout in this morning. I'm feeling a little bit like Markwayne Mullins, ready to take on the Teamsters Union Goon. Did you see that clip? Is that the craziest thing you've ever seen?
Okay, I didn't even know who that senator was. I mean,
Markwayne Mullins is a senator from Oklahoma.
From Oklahoma, yeah. And I've really never heard of him or like done any research on him or really ever thought about him. And nothing against my friends from Oklahoma who listen to this podcast, and there are several, but I didn't realize he was like an MMA fighter.
He's a professional fighter, and he's been going back and forth with this Teamsters goon.
Well, and let's make sure everyone really understands what you're saying. The Teamsters are goons. Having dealt with the Teamsters for the better part of 10 years of my life in my former business,
you know, I
the
didn't even
Teamsters
think about the fact when we
are
walked in
goons.
today. Yeah, I was going to open this up.
You just open up the big, like major trigger warning here. The Teamsters are the mob, still to this day, and they are the scum of the earth. So when I saw the clip, I was like, well, maybe there won't be a fight. And of course, it's Bernie Sanders who's saying, "Gentlemen."
Wait. Yeah, I mean, I was like, I've never in my life did I think I'd be like, "Wow, Bernie
you
Sanders
are a United States senator."
Bernie Sanders is the adult in the room.
Sit down.
I mean, so it's Bernie Sanders was chairing the committee, and these guys apparently had been doing some back and forth from a previous hearing on Twitter, and the Teamsters guy was making fun of Markwayne Mullins for standing on a block or something during a debate, during his election, whatever. But it was just amazing to watch because Mullins actually stood up to like, we're going to finish this right now. And Bernie Sanders is like, sit down.
You talking to me? You talking to me? I'm the only one here.
So
it was grand theater. I mean, it's been kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of a clown show in Congress for the last couple of days.
My gosh. Well, and so I think I would say that it's been a clown show across the world.
Yeah.
And clown show is probably not exactly the right way because there's some really serious issues.
No, it's incredibly serious. Even the hearing that you speak of was a serious hearing.
Yeah.
And when you have the president of the Teamsters, by the way, I mean, the Teamsters were founded by a guy named Jimmy Hoffa, who we still don't know where his body is.
That's right.
I don't know why that just popped into my head, but I have this
buried
vision
in concrete
of Jack
stadium,
Nicholson
right?
as Jimmy Hoffa in the movie Hoffa, and we still don't know where his body is.
Yeah. Well, so a lot has happened. So a few days ago, we had a march in D.C., and you probably don't know about it because the mainstream media completely buried it. There were 290,000 people who marched on the mall in support of Israel.
Including our friend John Desser. He was there, and his family was there. And
you had Republican and
guess
Democrat
what?
leadership.
Nobody was masked, and there was no violence.
No violence.
Imagine that.
Amazing.
Actually, there was one bit of violence the night before. I don't know if you heard this, but one of the medical tents were vandalized by some pro-Hamas hoodlums. Graffitied, and they had to flip the medical tent. They had to flip the canvas to hide the graffiti.
So the astounding thing to me was that we have this massive march in support of Israel in Washington, D.C. The next morning's Washington Post, not on the front page, not on the A section at all, covered in the Metro section.
Imagine that.
I mean, it's just astounding how outrageous.
Imagine this
coverage.
But you get a bunch of pro-Hamas protesters, rioting through. That happened last night.
Last night at the DNC. That was
the
the next
DNC.
step. So the response to the peaceful march of 290,000 people in the mall is pro-Hamas demonstrators pounding on the doors of the DNC to say, demanding a ceasefire.
Yeah.
And a quote.
And they had to shut down the Capitol.
And this is a quote from Axios, which is not. I mean, they're a good news organization, but they're not very fair to Republicans or the right, right? But a Democrat member of Congress saying that they were more scared than January 6th.
Yeah, because these people were armed,
And,
probably.
well, I don't know if they were
And they
armed, but
would have
were
done
definitely
a lot more damage.
Well, they did do a lot more damage. I mean,
I don't know.
they
Anyway,
didn't do more damage, but they were
false equivalence.
Yes, but the point is that we're out of control. I mean, this stuff with Israel. I mean, when you have Hillary Clinton going on The View and saying really good stuff to shut them down because of they've been so kind of over the top pro-Palestinian.
Yeah.
And she's like, wait a minute, the Hamas broke the ceasefire.
Yeah.
We were in a ceasefire. October 6th, there was a ceasefire. They broke it on October 7th.
Hamas was never in a ceasefire because they were still firing rockets even before that.
Well, I mean, the point is that this whole we need a ceasefire right now. Well, you should have told Hamas that on October 7th.
Yeah.
When they broke the ceasefire.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
breaking the ceasefire. That kind of sugarcoats exactly what happened on October 7th.
But what's fascinating is that you have this because Obama spoke at he had his anniversary of when he got elected 15 years ago. So they had a big reunion of the Obama people, and so he has this panel with the
was it in the White House? Because they're all there.
Not in the White House, but they had a panel, and he's talking about the Hamas. He's asked about the Israel issue, and basically says, "Oh, we all have blood on our hands.
Yeah.
Everybody's at fault. Yeah. Nobody is." And I mean, trying to equate what Hamas has done to what Israel's reaction is, which many people are trying to do, is in my mind just outrageous.
It is outrageous.
And then so you have Obama.
It's absolutely insane. Hamas is a genocidal. I wouldn't even call it an organization, but they are bent on not only the destruction of Israel, but the massive genocide of all Jews. And make no mistake about these types of, Islamo-fascists, for lack of a better term. Once they're done with the Jews, they're coming for the Christians.
100%.
And they've said that.
They have literally
take them
said
at
that.
their word.
I mean, so
once Iran is done with the Jews,
and you're segueing,
Iran is coming for us, and they've
segueing
already coming.
You're
for
segueing
us.
perfectly into this latest craziness, which is this TikTok viral. There's a viral videos of TikTokers saying, "Oh, you have to stop what you're doing right now and read this letter to America from Bin Laden that was published in 2002.
Yeah.
My eyes are opened. I don't understand why. I mean, this is just, I'm going through an existential crisis because now I understand why,
And who owns TikTok?
Well,
the Chinese.
The Chinese.
And who is bent on the destruction of America?
The Chinese.
The Chinese. And who was in America yesterday?
And this is happening while she is here.
While she is here, and did you see the pro-Xi parade and the newly clean, immaculate streets of San Francisco?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make it up.
It's ridiculous.
And then our very communist governor Gavin Newsom gets up and says, "Of course we're cleaning up San Francisco for Xi." Of course we are.
I mean,
and now that she's gone, we're just going to let it go.
Well, that's going to be the question, right? If they were able to do this and they didn't have to spend any extra money because they used existing budgets, then
it's on purpose.
Yeah,
it's on purpose. The reason why these leftists, I won't even call them Democrat, mayors and governors are allowing our cities to rot. It's on purpose.
Yeah,
it's on purpose. They can clean it up overnight if they want.
Right,
and they did.
They proved that they can do.
They proved they can do it.
All right. So getting back to this TikTok Bin Laden thing.
Yeah.
So this
I just heard about this morning, and I was dumbfounded.
It's astounding. It's astounding. So you have anti-Israel Gen Zers, sending this Bin Laden 2002 letter to America, sending it viral, and what's amazing? So where they pointed it to, everyone was pointing it to it was published in The Guardian, which then took it down because The Guardian's like, wow, these kids just don't understand the context of this. This is crazy.
Well, because kids don't understand what exactly is Sharia law.
Well, right. I mean,
maybe before you start spouting off about stuff you don't know, maybe you should research Sharia law because all those people, queers for Palestine.
Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't happen under Sharia law.
They'd be dead.
Oh, and by the way, you wearing that nice little cutoff and your short shorts in Palestine under Sharia law, not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, you get your legs cut off.
I mean, and I
It's
don't know
insane.
if anyone read the letter that when Osama bin Laden put out a couple letters. He put one out in 2012. He put one out in 2011, I believe. It was sometime, no, maybe 2010. It was
And
sometime
each of them
after-
were a
it
call
was
to
sometime
resistance, call
yeah,
to war.
And
Make no mistake.
In the one after Obama got elected president, he was basically saying Obama isn't doing anything different than what Bush was doing, and from the river to the sea, going right into the Palestinian thing.
Oh yeah.
And that's what he does in 2002. Is he talks about how he just goes unloads against the Jews. Talks about how Israel is not a place where. Well, here's one.
No, he talked about
one
how
quote from it is the American people are the ones who pay the taxes which fund the planes that bomb us in Afghanistan, the tanks that strike and destroy our homes in Palestine, the armies which occupy our lands in the Arabian Gulf, and the fleets which ensure the blockade of Iraq. For this reason, all Americans and Jewish people are culpable for the crimes committed by the Americans and Jews against Muslims. And so, he's basically saying this is why we attacked you.
Yeah.
And now these kids on TikTok are like, oh, I just never understood.
I never knew.
I never understood that this is what it was about.
And it's Marxist language, right? It's they're so oppressed, and the oppressors are us.
Well, and so
it's this
I will say
DEI sort of wishy-washy Marxist, neo-Marxist language that he uses.
Well, and then so Jamie Weinstein, who is a person on X, Twitter, TikTok is a problem. But the bigger issue is Americans being susceptible to bin Laden's letter. Our education system has failed to teach students what makes America unique, why people all around the world risk life and limb to get here. We are bombarded constantly with this narrative in the media and on college campuses that America is the most racist country in the world that is responsible for all sorts of horrors abroad. The opposite is the truth. America is among the least racist countries in the world, and America has done more to bring liberty to people around the world than any other country, including losing American troops fighting on behalf of innocent Muslims.
Absolutely.
I mean, just spot
Absolutely.
on. And then there was another one. I lost it. I don't know where it went. But
so much of what I heard this morning was it was pearl clutching.
Yeah.
In terms of, I just didn't know that this was the truth behind bin Laden and his grievances against America, and it's all just complete and total BS.
Right. Well, maybe I've got it here. It's Megyn Kelly. So I just lost it again.
Oh no. It's not in your trusty notes.
I didn't write the whole
We have
thing.
a bunch of notes.
Okay,
today.
so here's Megyn Kelly. To the parents of all these losers suddenly persuaded by the deranged musing of the man who murdered 3,000 American innocents, you failed. This is to the parents. You failed. You were likely boozing, marching for some left-wing cause, or simply ignoring your kids. You failed to teach right from wrong, a proper moral code, a love of country, and perspective on America's role in the world. Because you failed, my kids and others are going to have to grow up battling these assholes for the future of the United States. I have every confidence that they can do it, but I resent and judge you for making it necessary as opposed to fostering a life in which they can focus solely on growth, joy, love, family, hard work, and creation. No point getting bogged down in it, however. Trust me when I tell you that the majority of Americans, this generation and the next, will fight to defeat the pernicious lunacy you've unleashed, and we will win. I totally agree with her.
So I mean, Megyn Kelly, when she was on Fox News, I found her fairly interesting. When she went to NBC, I found her fairly annoying. She has since done this whole turn to where she's speaking so much truth on so many different issues, and now I listen to her occasionally. Was that on Twitter?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's absolutely correct. And we have to fight this. And we have to fight this in our homes, and we have to fight this in our schools because it's complete insanity. It's propaganda.
Right. And
it's not.
Some people
there's nothing
responded
based in truth.
Some people responded to her by saying, "Well, the schools, yes, it's top to bottom, but it starts at home, and parents have to take some responsibility for laying some safeguards, some guidelines, and helping kids understand what it is to be American. I mean, Ronald Reagan, we talk about Ronald Reagan a lot.
We do.
And there's a reason, because that dude was right on so many things. And the thing that he was the most right about was in his last speech from the Oval Office, his farewell address, in which he said, freedom is one generation away
Yes.
from being lost.
Yeah.
And man, if we haven't seen that happening.
And it starts in the home, but you can see it within the culture as well. This generation is the least churched ever in the history of the country. Failure to recognize that our values, that our heritage, that the founding of our country is based in a Judeo-Christian tradition.
Yeah.
And not shying away from it. That was actually the gift of Ronald Reagan. He stood firm on those principles. Said that we are inherently a Judeo-Christian nation. We need to be that city on a hill, that light of those values of that faith on a hill.
Well, that's the thing.
And we should not shy away from those values ever. And yet we've taught that somehow those values are corrupt. Somehow those values are not correct for...
Well, not only that, but that they are worse here than anywhere else in the world. And yet this is the place that people die to get to.
Yeah.
There is no other place.
Unless you're going to New York and being moved from a very nice hotel to a tent city and then saying, you know what, it's time for me to go back to Venezuela.
Well, that's...
You saw that story the other day.
But that's rare. I mean, the point is that people coming here because it is a shining city on a hill, and we're really screwing it up.
Yeah.
And we've got to get back on track. So then, even more on this issue is just the spat between Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens.
Yeah, where did that come from?
So apparently, Candace Owens has not been where Ben Shapiro is on the Israel-Gaza conflict. She's been more nuanced. Shapiro is, and rightfully so, hardline.
Oh yeah, completely.
Pro-Israel, this is outrageous, no ceasefire, nothing, And Candace Owens has been like, well, there's innocent Palestinians and, blah, 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 which, we can have those discussions. So Ben Shapiro is speaking at what seems to be a private event. He's videoed, and he's saying basically that he thinks her comments have been outrageous and disgusting. And
didn't she make a comment also that the Muslim quarter in Jerusalem is somehow like some apartheid state?
Yeah, I mean, she didn't quite understand that.
And that in and of itself can kind of be a big trigger. I think for a lot of people who've never been to Jerusalem and understand there are 4 distinct quarters and all of them live very well together, and people in Jerusalem for the most part live in harmony together.
Right.
And it showed an ignorance of really what is going on in Israel that was startling.
Her assumption and the way that she framed it was that this is the only place that Arabs can live if you live in Jerusalem, or Muslims can live, which is
completely
totally
not
false.
true.
I mean,
completely not true.
It's like saying only Hispanic people can live off Southern and 43rd Avenue.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because a bunch do. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only place they can live. So
Jerusalem's a pretty cosmopolitan place.
Yeah. I mean, it's been around for 6,000 years.
For a minute.
So
for 5
then
minutes.
Candace, so she responds by his comment.
She makes some statement on Twitter.
Well, she said on Twitter, she says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they should be called."
She quotes Matthew.
Great, quotes Matthew.
And then she really steps in it.
Well, Ben responds by saying, "Candace, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means quit." That's totally fair thing for him to say.
Yeah, I think she's on her way out.
Well, maybe not. I mean, he's kind of the figurehead, but he's not in charge.
No.
So then she responds by saying, well, you're unhinged and we've had to deal with you and, you know, you be basically accusing him of injecting himself into the scripture, which I don't exactly understand how she thinks he did that. He's just pointing out if you're, you know, making money is problematic based on, you know, because Matthew is about turning your back on the riches of the world, right?
Yeah.
So it's going back and forth. Now, the Daily Wire, to their credit, they're a pretty diverse group, and they allow a lot of dissent.
Yeah.
I mean, Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro have been on opposite issues for a while. I mean, almost every big issue, they've been on opposite sides. Well, that's interesting. So that, you know, makes for good content, whatever. But I just find this a little bit strange. Well, and then she went on Tucker.
Yeah, I haven't even seen that or listened to it.
Which was yesterday, I think.
Yeah, last night.
And so some of this stuff happened after.
Prior. Oh, it happened after?
Right. The video, obviously, because Tucker plays the video
Yeah.
and she responds to it. And she has, I mean, it's an interesting conversation-ish. I mean, it's not, you know, all that informative, but, you know, Tucker and Candace like each other and they, you know, it's a mutual affection society.
Yeah, I don't know what point she was trying to make by quoting Matthew and
I think she's just big.
kind of throwing the whole money thing back at Ben Shapiro. I don't think that's not just well thought out, you know.
Well,
response.
I mean, you could. There's some people who are saying it's a little bit anti-Semitic.
It can be taken that way, sure, if that's her intention, and that's.
I think
that would be a career-ending mistake.
Yeah, I think that her intention, based on what I looked
and if she wants to,
was that she was just like, I'm being picked on. Look, I'm gonna take the, you know, blessed are the peacemakers, for they'll be called children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake. There's
but you're not being persecuted for righteousness' sake. You make a good living being on the Daily Wire.
She may think she's being persecuted, for righteousness'
and you know, you got your start kind of being a tool of Charlie Kirk in Turning Point, and she's created this a pretty decent nonprofit with Blexit. Yeah, I don't know what her point was by doing that.
Yeah, just,
you know,
interesting.
and you need to really have your facts straight, especially if you're on the right. And you're newly on the right, which she is, you should have your facts straight. And before you start spouting stuff off that you don't understand. And I don't think she had that.
Well,
I don't know Candace, and I've never met her, but I know people who do.
Well, and I think
like her.
Yeah, and I think she's
and
changed.
same with Ben.
Yeah, and I think she's matured, clearly, from the time she was at Turning Point to now. I mean, I think she's gotten more serious. She's gotten married. She's had kids. She's, you know. I think that those things help people mature.
Yeah.
And get a little bit more thoughtful. So this is a little bit interesting in the sense that it seems like kind of similar to what stuff she was doing before that was a little bit more hard-edged and not as thoughtful. So, yeah, see how it plays out. So now let's turn our eyes to Washington, D.C.
Where the real clown show is?
Where the real clown show is. So we have, and you pointed this out. I read the editorial. I thought it was exactly right. The Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, lead editorial yesterday.
We had so the House passed a continuing resolution, a clean CR, which the Senate just passed yesterday, and the president will sign today. So we will avoid a shutdown. And I think that's exactly what we said was going to happen when they did the motion to vacate against McCarthy. I predicted that no matter who became speaker, that there would be a clean CR before the end of the year that would take us through the end of the year, and that then we would get piled on a big omnibus, which this CR takes us into January and February. It's a laddered CR, but it's clean. No spending cuts, no policy changes. So now we're spending the same amount going into next year, and then we're going to be up against election time while they try to do last year's budget in that year's budget. I mean, it's just...
So this all proves...
How does this make sense?
This all proves just one thing about the whole speaker fight, and that it was personal.
Yeah.
It was personal between Matt Gaetz, who's still under ethics investigation, as far as we know, and Andy Biggs and the rest of them. It was all personal. It had nothing to do with policy, nothing to do with the way he was conducting his job. It was all personal. And when you allow your personal animus, and I'd said this in a previous podcast, to interject into politics, it creates chaos. And it's creating chaos. It's creating a complete clown show.
Well, we had 3 weeks of absolute chaos
Yeah.
because we couldn't get a speaker. We finally got a speaker, and we're right back to where we were. The very thing that he did, that Mike Johnson just did, is why supposedly Gaetz filed the motion to vacate, but nobody filed a motion to vacate against
Well,
Mike
Gaetz
Johnson.
filed another motion yesterday. He filed a complaint with the ethics committee against Kevin McCarthy because Kevin McCarthy apparently elbowed another congressman while going through a hallway.
Yeah.
And,
Well, not
and
just
going
any
back to
congressman, one of the congressmen that voted against it.
yeah, exactly. But going back to Ben Shapiro, he made a great comment in his podcast yesterday. He goes, "Cue the Benny Hill music."
Yeah, right.
Because I guess the congressman
They
went
chased
after him,
him.
chased him.
Yeah, yeah.
Cue the Benny Hill music. I just start laughing. I go, that is a perfect visual for exactly is what happening in Congress.
Yeah. Well, and so all of that with the Markwayne Mullins escapade, on the Senate side. So the tensions have been high.
Oh my God.
They have not had a break for 10 weeks, and
So they adjourned.
They adjourned. They were like, "We're getting the hell out of here.
We can't do it anymore.
Getting the hell out of here.
We can't do anymore. We don't like each other.
So they took
done.
a 2-week break, and people criticize Congress for not working that hard. They take a bunch of breaks. I go back and forth. They definitely needed to get out of town and just take a breath because it has been an insane 3 months.
Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
They need to get back to having conversations with real people outside the bubble of DC, hear from their constituents. Hopefully, they'll be smart enough to.
It's a Thanksgiving break. How many of them are really going to do that?
Well, they should.
The vast majority of Congress people, what people don't know, are in very safe seats, very safe districts.
Yeah.
And very few actually go and actually work their districts and see what people are thinking. Very few.
But even if they do, and this is one thing I really, really admire about David Schweikert, is that dude will take his daughter, go to Costco, and his son, go to Costco and do his shopping, and talk to every person who wants to talk to him. I mean, his shopping trip to Costco probably takes
3 hours,
4 hours every weekend when he goes, because he's willing to actually get out amongst the people and talk to them. And I think more people need to do that. And hopefully, members are shopping for Thanksgiving and they see people and they get, feedback. Yeah, because I think feedback's important.
Yeah, but David he's a unicorn within the Congress because he actually works and he thinks about solutions and he thinks about different ways of doing things and different solutions using technology that maybe we can make people's lives better. And he's got staff that he rides really, really hard. It's hard to work for David because he's 24/7 on the go. He's like the Energizer Bunny. You wind him up and he just keeps going. And that's hard. That's a hard place to be. He's one of the very few who do that, who just work. Well, and he wakes up working, and he's always and he makes himself available too, which is even crazier. And he and I will go back and forth on stuff, but I just admire him for that. That he works very hard.
Well,
and that's not an infomercial for David Schweikert. People have different opinions, but for the district that he has and the job that he has, and comparatively speaking with the rest of the delegation, even some Republicans, he's the hardest working of the bunch.
Yeah. Well, the guy thinks about the debt every day because he sends a text
every day.
The debt every day.
Every day.
All right. So moving on to the Senate. Big news this week. Joe Manchin decides that he's going to take a pass on running for the Senate again. So now this is almost a guarantee. And we have Joe Justice to thank. The governor of West Virginia was the one guy who had the ability to scare Manchin out of this race because he's popular. Yes, he's popular. He's loaded. He's very rich. He doesn't have to do this. But he's been a successful governor of West Virginia.
He was a Democrat before, though.
Yeah, and he
right.
became a Republican.
Which is what maybe Joe Manchin could have.
I mean, could have, but
I mean,
decided
I
not
had an
to.
exchange with somebody the other day, like, well, what do you think about the Manchin thing? I said, well, you know, if Joe Manchin had torpedoed a couple bills like the quote unquote Inflation Reduction Act, which he had the ability to do.
Yep.
If he had gone against the administration rather than trying to work with the administration on so many different things, if he had become independent, caucused with the Republicans, he'd still have a job.
Oh, absolutely.
He would have been Teflon, and the former governor the governor would never have
He
challenged
wouldn't
him.
challenge him. So
And so it's inexplicable to me. I mean, it was like, oh, he's doing this for the good of the country. I'm like, no, he's actually reading the tea leaves and understanding that he's not going to get elected because of the things he did or didn't do.
right. Well, so
Because he's had an amazing political career.
right, and he doesn't feel like he's done yet
No.
because he's now announced that he's open to running for president.
Yeah.
And that's going to create some problems for Mr. Joe Biden.
Well, there's a lot of problems for Joe Biden because the other problem is RFK Jr. is polling now in the mid-20s.
Right. Right.
And we're gonna have a guest on our show next week, a little precursor, but we're gonna have Rich Towell on our show next week, who did a focus group here in Arizona on the election, and RFK Jr. came out pretty much ahead of everyone,
Which is
with that group,
with the swing voters,
with that
right.
sample.
Yeah.
So I mean, as people start to pay more attention to what's being said, what's being not said, especially over the next several months, as the Iowa caucuses become closer and New Hampshire primary becomes closer, a lot could start happening.
Well, let's this is another good segue. Thank you, Chris.
I do my best.
I mean,
You know,
so
I figure you're going to go that way.
clearly the Manchin thing is big for the Senate because
It is
this
big.
now we just saved $20 to $40 million in Republican spending on a race that we don't have to spend that money.
Well,
on.
just to interject, after that march on Washington the other day for Israel, there was a vote that took place in the Senate on the emergency funding for Israel. Did you read about this?
No.
And all the Republicans voted for it, and all the Democrats voted against it. It's because it included the rider for the elimination of the 87,000 IRS
Yeah,
agents
yeah.
as to how to pay for the $14 billion.
Well, I see
And-
some
and-
ads
and-
coming next year that say Senator such and such
Voted
voted against
Israel.
to protect IRS thugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty good ad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, basically it was like the usual suspects, right? You know, Mike Lee and Ted Cruz and the rest of them, 20 of them, like hijacked the floor and got this bill to the floor. They weren't going to vote on it, and
They were
got
the
every
force vote.
Republican to vote for it. And for whatever inexplicable reason, including Joe Manchin, and Kirsten Sinema, which that's a bad look.
Yeah.
we have a lot of Orthodox Jews here in Phoenix and Arizona, and that's a bad look. So got everyone on record.
Interesting. Well, that's gonna play out for sure. So we've saved some money in the West Virginia. So now the two big ones are Montana and Ohio.
But that was my point. Actually, Tester voted it down,
crazy.
which is crazy.
Yeah. Well, and Sherrod Brown
Yeah,
in Ohio.
in Ohio, crazy.
That's yeah. So now, I think there's
Just a huge
it's almost
miscalculation.
yeah, I think there's almost a guarantee. You know, there's no guarantees in politics, but I feel very confident that the Republicans can win at least one of the states that they need. So it's 50-50. So West Virginia goes, it's 50-50, right?
Yeah.
So either Republicans hold control because Trump wins or because they can win another state.
Yeah.
And Ohio and Montana are the top two opportunities. And
I think
Arizona.
Ohio's a huge opportunity. I think Montana is a must win.
yeah,
I mean, Montana is inherently very conservative state.
Yeah.
John Tester's been but trying to do a balancing act for
he
years, and I
is-
don't understand why people keep reelecting.
well,
him.
because he does exactly what Goldwater used to say. I'm an honest man in an election year. these guys that are in the Senate, when they only come up every 6 years, I mean, they can do a lot of stupid stuff and still focus on that last.
And then show up in the state, during an election
Yeah.
year, and all of a sudden they're everywhere.
Right. So
You know who did that very well? God rest his soul, John McCain.
John McCain. That's right.
John McCain was the national senator. You never saw him. He never was around. And then all of a sudden, it's election year, or actually about a year and a half before election year.
Yeah.
And
18
John
months.
McCain was everywhere.
Yeah. He was everywhere. So going into the presidential, you had this big Politico magazine article.
Oh, yeah.
That Jonathan Martin, really good reporter, put up.
One of the better ones.
And it,
Do you have it?
yeah, I'll tell you, this is, let me get to the quote that just blew my mind. Let's see. Talking about, oh man, come on.
Silence on air.
Silence on air. It's
Silence on
terrible.
air.
But it's worth it. I'm telling you, it's worth it.
You're not going to sing for us, are you, Sam?
No. Well, I don't see why I can't find it. Anyway, it is an article that goes chapter and verse why the Democrats are really, really
Indeed.
panicked.
Well, it goes into Joe Biden's supposed, perhaps, senility
Yeah,
and his ability to make it to November of next year.
right. And the fact that he does not have the capability, and this is reported by Jonathan Martin. This isn't Jonathan Martin opinion. This is Jonathan Martin reporting what he's hearing from top Democrats. That Joe Biden is not able to govern and run for re-election at the same time. That he just doesn't have they're going to run a basement campaign again.
Which in COVID, maybe that worked, but in this environment, unless they are planning to hatch some other new pandemic that keeps everybody in their homes again, which will not work,
Right.
then that's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And what is in the basement of the White House exactly? It's the bowling alley, right?
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to be the bowling alley president. He's going to be hanging out in the bowling alley.
President. Well, he's every man.
He's the bowling
every
alley
man.
president. I did not. Well, I did say that. Yeah. Well, there's another article in the New York Times based on their polling that they did recently that talked about Joe Biden's losing his effectiveness and love and devotion of the black community. That 20% in swing state African Americans would vote for Trump, which is higher than Trump's supposed 10% last time.
And
the fire alarms are going on.
well, and that's
and
coupled
they're
with,
advertising on ESPN.
that's coupled with the fire alarms going on with the lack of support amongst the Hispanic community.
Well,
Which
that's been growing for a long time.
An all-time low right now. So
Well, and I think a lot of that has to do with this administration's approach to a lot of social issues too,
yeah,
which in both the black community, which is much more well-churched than most, and Hispanic community especially, what is being pursued by this administration in terms of social policy is not going to it's not going to go well within those communities.
right.
And as more people wake up to that, it's going to be a problem for the president.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've heard over time is that the reason that at the same time those communities really gravitate towards Trump and his bombast, and in this sort of what they see as very masculine and very strong and macho, for lack of a better term, and that's why Trump has done well in those communities, and many of that electorate, especially male, have swung that way.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that continues to grow. So it goes back to the other point with you continue to persecute Donald Trump, and be careful. I mean, you've made this point, consistently, that it could completely backfire on the Democrats.
Yeah. Well, look, you look at the polling, so that then leads to our discussion, next part of the discussion, which is Tim Scott dropped out.
He did drop out.
Not a surprise. I think it surprised some people that it happened now. I'm not all that surprised. I think he realized that there was no path. Nikki Haley's rise has it essentially said to him, I think, that it doesn't matter what happens in Iowa and New Hampshire. We get South Carolina, she's going to have the momentum more than I am, because that's the only place really he could.
Yeah, where he was going to be making a big play.
Right.
But we can thank Vivek for Nikki Haley's rise, right?
I think there's something to be said.
You are such scum.
I mean,
one of the great responses in any debate.
It is.
Wow.
Let this be a lesson to those of us who watch politics, participate in politics, care about politics. On the presidential level, debates can matter.
They've definitely mattered. Win or lose, they've definitely mattered for Nikki Haley.
Well, and they matter for Tim Scott.
Yeah.
He did not do great in the first debate, and he never came out of the game. I mean, it was like, at that point, it was kind of like, he's done.
Yeah.
It was amazing how the expectations were a certain level. First debate happens. It's just kind of not a player in that debate.
Okay, so let's role play here for a second. So you're managing the DeSantis campaign right now. You're Sean Noble, dark money extraordinaire prince. What are you telling him?
Drop out.
Because he is. I mean, I know a little bit about his strategy. He is putting everything into Iowa.
Yeah,
and we know from history that I was fine, but how much momentum is that going to carry into New Hampshire?
Well,
how much momentum is that really going to carry into South Carolina?
Right, and look, I mean, to who won Iowa last time? Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz, yeah.
Who won Iowa?
But Ted Cruz lasted throughout, until post-March.
Yeah.
It did give him enough of a boost to at least be the last man standing with Donald Trump. That's the argument he would make.
Right. Actually, the last man standing against Donald Trump, I think, was John Kasich.
We all know what happened to John Kasich.
But
he's part of the no labels, no.
Oh, is he?
I don't know.
Probably. But before that, it was Rick Santorum.
Yeah.
Before that, it was Mike Huckabee.
Yeah.
I mean, people that just never got out of the, they may have won Iowa, but it literally never.
But they were able to parlay it into other careers.
Well,
apparently.
Yeah. So polling right now.
Let me take
a quick look at. Let's see if we've got an Iowa poll that's recent. Don't have Iowa that's in the last week, but we do have New Hampshire. New Hampshire, Trump 42, Haley 20, Christie 14, DeSantis 9, Ramaswamy 8, Scott and Burgum at 2, Pence, Hutchinson, Chip Pence is out. So,
Ace is still in.
Yeah, he's not polling.
He's still running, even though he's not polling.
He gets 1 on a national poll. And that's the thing. So Trump's at 42, Haley's at 20, Christie's at 14. This is New Hampshire, right? So Haley's done well in New Hampshire. She's had a huge boost there, right? DeSantis at 9. That's not great. I thought I saw it. Yeah. There was an Iowa poll that had Nikki and Ron, so DeSantis and Haley were tied, but they were still 20-some points behind Trump. So, here we go. Here's an Iowa one that was, what is this? Well, it's over a week old. But it was Trump 44, DeSantis 18, Haley 15. So this is before the last debate. Scott 9, Ramaswamy 5, Christie 5. So the interesting thing is that Scott has been polling better than Ramaswamy in many places, and yet had the wherewithal to say, you know what, it's not my time. Not my time. So, good for him.
He's an excellent senator.
Yeah. And
he's
he just got reelected, so he's going to be there for a while.
Yeah, he's going to be there for a while. He's going to be able to parlay this. I mean, if part of this, I mean, cynically, if he was thinking of parlaying this into more of a national presence, he's going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
In a much broader way. He's going to be able to go and help other Republicans get elected in a much broader way because of the experience he's had on the campaign trail, and also traveling across the country, which running for president makes you do.
Yeah.
And raising money and being in front of people that he wouldn't normally be in front of.
Yeah.
So those are good things. And he's not going to endorse anybody right now, which is smart. And he can parlay this into a much greater, being a much more visible, respected leader within the party.
So this all comes down. So really,
there's always positives that come out of these campaigns, depending how you conducted yourself.
Right.
Now, Chris Christie will go into oblivion. Is my prediction.
Probably. I presume he'll stay in the race until after New Hampshire.
He believes that he can make a play for New Hampshire, which I just don't.
I don't see that happening. He's in third right now in New Hampshire. He's above DeSantis, but he's not going to win South Carolina.
No.
So I do see a situation in which you could have, let's take Trump out of the picture for a second. You could have a DeSantis win Iowa, a Haley win New Hampshire, or maybe Christie wins New Hampshire and Haley wins South Carolina. So maybe. So something would have to happen to Trump.
Yeah. What do you think? So what, in your expert opinion, what do you think would have to happen to Trump?
He'd have to die. He'd have to have a heart attack and die.
Then so this.
He literally would have to die. I he could be mortally ill in the hospital in a coma, and he'll still win.
He'll still win.
Absolutely. He can either be in jail or he can be in a coma, and he's going to win the nomination because.
So at this point, DeSantis has said, "I'm not vying for second place." Do you think Haley is actually vying for second place to be the VP pick?
I don't know. Maybe
be a strong pick.
She'd be a strong pick. I don't know whether
at this point.
I don't know.
I wouldn't have thought that 6 months ago, but now.
No, I think that she'd be. But I don't know whether that he would go for that. I don't know what. We don't know.
It wouldn't. She wouldn't overshadow him.
No, but we don't know what goes through that guy's head.
Yeah, it changes by the minute.
I have never. I gave up trying to figure that guy out years ago. All I know is that the people who support him will die for him. And I don't think that's
there's
smart.
Definitely a cult of personality there.
It's a huge cult of personality that.
Well, he is Hitler, right?
What?
Yeah, because he said that the communists and the Marxists are vermin lurking in our midst the other day.
Oh, that makes
and so immediately I heard the montage earlier today. Immediately the press. Starts equating him to Hitler. This is the same press that won't condemn Hamas.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's very convenient
the people who
become
are killing
anti-Semitic.
Jews, yeah. They're not anti-Semitic. They're just killing Jews.
Yeah. The mainstream press suddenly becomes very anti-Semitic when it has to do with Donald Trump, who arguably was the most pro-Israel, pro-Jewish president we've ever had.
Yeah. So
that argument made by a lot of people I can't find fault with.
So Trump, my guess is he wins Iowa, he wins New Hampshire, he wins South Carolina, he wins Florida. Super Tuesday, it's done. Really, if he wins Iowa, I think it's done, right?
Yeah. The wave will begin, and it'll. There's a cult of personality there, but there's also the cult of joining the winning team.
His lead in New Hampshire is 22 points.
Yeah, and New Hampshire's always sort of a bellwether. I wouldn't have thought that his lead would be that much in New Hampshire.
Yeah, 22 points.
I would have thought that maybe it would have been less so.
His lead here in Arizona, 37. His lead in Ohio is where did that go?
And yet, in the national polling, either one of those candidates, DeSantis and Haley, beat Joe Biden by a bigger margin. Why? Because the independents then swing.
Yeah, but in the primary,
In the primary, it's totally
the
the
national
opposite.
polls are even worse.
His
for
big
them.
task, if he gets the nomination, stays out of jail, is going to be having to convince those suburban women and independents that he's not some kind of lunatic.
Yeah, and there's going to be,
Which he can do. He
Yeah.
has the ability to do that.
well, especially against
Does he have the discipline to
against
do that?
Joe Biden, and their issue that he'll have to contend with, and he might be able to be the one that threads the needle on this, is the abortion issue. That's
Yeah.
going to continue to haunt.
It's going to be on all the ballots.
a bunch
It's
of
going
them.
to be it's going to be on a bunch of them, including this state.
Yeah, yeah.
But it goes back to your point, and the point of both the New York Times article and also the Political article is that does Joe Biden actually make it, or does Michelle Obama come to the rescue
Well,
in a superwoman suit?
Jonathan Martin.
Which
tries
is the
to
big
play up-
conspiracy right
Yeah,
now.
well, I
It's
mean,
in all the circles.
I don't know if it's all this. We've
Yeah.
said it here
We've
multiple
said it here.
times.
Yeah.
I still think that it's a very strong possibility. Because, look,
And then
what happened
she's
on
unbeatable.
what
But
happened
it
on
has to happen
Veterans
at the
Day-
convention.
What happened on Veterans Day with him and the wreath
Ugh.
was just
Just
to-
I mean, all kidding, joking aside, I don't like that. I don't like to see that,
No,
my
it's
president.
terrible.
I don't like to see him bowing before she. I don't want any of that. Yeah. And quite frankly, the old Joe Biden was not that person. I mean, I still remember him debating, our friend Paul Ryan.
yeah.
Paul lost that debate. Joe
Yeah.
did a pretty good job.
He did.
And I was biased, and I remember that debate, and I was like, "Ooh, oh well."
Well, here's the other problem that Joe
Because
Biden has.
that was, I mean, Joe Biden was a very, very quick on his feet, very good debater, very, he'd been in Washington for 40-something years,
So check this out, though.
forever.
Quinnipiac just put out a poll that showed that they asked the satisfaction with the current field of candidates for the 2024
It's gotta be
presidential
in the
election.
toilet.
Republicans are 67% of Republicans are satisfied with their choices for candidates. So either Trump or whatever, right?
Almost
So
70%.
Democrats, 39%. 58% of Democrats would like to see another candidate enter the race.
There is another candidate. In the
58.
way. His name is Robert F. Kennedy,
But he's not a
Jr.
Democrat.
Well,
So independents, 72% of independents would like to see someone other than who the Republicans and the Democrats put up.
yeah.
So therein lies the RFK thing.
Oh, he polls extraordinarily well with
Yeah.
independents.
So the Democrats are
And-
really
and-
not happy with their choice of Joe Biden. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Well, he keeps.
Because it's that becomes becomes a turnout problem.
We all have aging parents, and your father passed away, and my father passed away early, but we have aging parents, some aging grandparents, and it's tough to watch, and that's exactly what we're watching. And it's shameful in many ways. And the problem with for the Democrats really is the person standing in the wings polls lower than the current president.
Yeah.
For when it comes to Kamala,
They have a problem.
it gets even worse.
They
Gets even worse. And so for Republicans, they have a good bench.
Great bench.
I mean, even we rip on even Vivek, but some of the
No.
arguments he makes is great.
Anybody
fine.
but we have a great bench other than Vivek.
Vivek.
He's just a dick. I mean,
Scum.
That guy, it's scum.
Scum.
That guy will never be president.
No,
of the
he will
States.
never be. He's not running for president. I truly believe he is there as a Trumpian stand-in
Yeah,
to
yeah,
make
he's the
Trumpian
proxy.
arguments depending on which way the wind blows.
Right.
And the people who are embracing him in the way that they are that as well.
Yep.
And smart guy, made a bunch of money, probably a decent guy overall, but but his misogyny and his sexism towards Nikki Haley has been really disgusting.
Yeah.
And that exposure just disqualifies him completely.
And ridiculous hair. The dude's got ridiculous hair.
And the teeth. The teeth.
Yeah, you mentioned that a couple episodes ago.
I mean, where does he get those things cleaned? They are whiter than they are shiny.
I don't know. Shiny happy
Pearly.
people.
Pearly, Shiny Happy People. Mickey Dolenz redid that song for REM. Do you hear that?
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees.
Monkees.
Re-recorded
And-
Shiny Happy People.
and-
I don't know why I just
And
remembered
Michael
that, but I
Stipe
did.
is super excited about that.
He loved it. He blessed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
See, we are old time conservatives who love liberal bands like REM and know every single song.
That's right.
You know, because when you're growing up in Reagan's America, I mean that was it.
You could embrace everything because things were good.
Yeah.
Things were good.
Things were good, and we didn't. There wasn't this vitriol that we see today.
I mean, look, I don't think I agree with anything that Michael Stipe has ever said politically. But gosh, I love REM's music.
Yes. And the
Love
sad. I don't know why we just went into this, but sad day when they announced that they were breaking up, because they had arguably released their last 2 albums, some of the best albums of their career, and I was really excited to just see it live. And they're like, nope.
Yeah.
Collapse into now. We're collapsing into forever.
Right.
I'm like,
well, they did just release Up's 25th anniversary edition,
which
is
when
great.
that first came
Got
out,
some live.
we're
tracks that are
digressing.
amazing.
Sorry, Robin. But when that first came out, I was like, what the heck is this? Because Bill Berry had left the band because he had an aneurysm on tour. And God bless him, he's a farmer in Athens. And I was like, what is this? And I didn't like it at first. And then I saw them live up in Seattle. And I was like, this is amazing. And that album became just sort of this plaintive, meditative music I would put on. And I love that album.
I'm telling you, Day Sleeper is
Walk
masterful
Unafraid
song.
and Parakeet.
Yeah.
It's all good stuff.
Yeah.
And so congratulations to REM for still keeping relevant and putting out these wonderful gems.
And if you want to,
for us aging Gen Xers.
if you want to get more, he was a recent guest on Smartless podcast.
Oh, he
with
was?
Jason Bateman and Will. Oh my gosh, don't know their names. Will, Sean, and Jason.
Okay.
Smartless.
Who, Michael Stipe was?
Michael Stipe, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
It was great because those guys were just fanboying it big time because they're our age. I mean,
we're dorks. We love REM.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I did a good job with Grace in terms of brainwashing her on REM. I haven't done as good job.
It's
with the
harder
other
now.
ones.
It's harder now. Yeah.
Yeah, they're more into U2.
Well, that's not bad.
Well, I took Preston to his first U2 concert.
You take him to the Sphere?
It's to the Sphere. Blew his mind.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
I'm going.
Now he's all in. Now he's like
going-
devouring U2.
We're going in December.
Are you?
Yeah.
You're
can't
gonna love it.
Can't wait.
You're gonna love it.
Can't wait.
I have to go again. Because, in all seriousness, the show is amazing. Those of you who haven't seen it, you got to go. And the visuals are incredible. But you know what? Bono has settled in, and his range is within these songs is excellent.
Good.
And that's how I evaluate a U2 show.
Yeah.
Because the Edge and the rest of them are always good. And hopefully Larry will make it to one of these shows.
That'd be great.
So with that.
All right.
So
There's a little bit of a tour de force today.
at least we end on some levity.
Yes.
U2 and REM, two of my
There you
favorite
go.
subjects.
There you go. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
Have a
for
great
listening.
weekend.
God bless.
See ya.